Yo, how's it going, guys? Thanks for watching. I'm really excited to get into today's video, not because I'm a hater, not because I'm here to strictly criticize Instacart, but especially as a part of the design community, I think it's really important to share these experiences in the hopes that either Instacart will listen to me or just the community in general. I know there's a pretty large subreddit dedicated to Instacart shoppers, and this is all for you guys. So, a little bit about myself is I'm a UX UI designer. I've been working in the industry for probably about a year. I recently graduated from Thinkful's bootcamp. It was a 6-month program where I studied the core fundamentals and values of the UX and UI design industry, and now currently working for a small startup building their design system from 0 to 1, and just getting ready to launch a really exciting product that I can't share too much about, but that's kind of a little bit about myself. So I just grabbed my phone so I can give you guys a better chronological example of all the things that I had to go through. So the first problem that I ran into was not necessarily UX, it's more so just bad communication within like the upper management and the ground level shoppers. The biggest problem with that was that I noticed if a customer placed an order for, let's say, 12 cases of water, no biggie, just get a cart, go grab the 12 cases of water. But then when you're checking out, your card doesn't account for how much CRV is added to those 12 cases of water. And every time that you try to get 12 cases of water, I mean, sometimes 10, doesn't have to be 12, it could be 10, 8, 7, whatever. I'm not sure what their threshold limit is. But I noticed that a lot of people were getting a large amount of like water orders, like large cases of water. And when you go to the checkout line, your card instantly gets declined because their card doesn't account for the CRV. And so the only way to get around this was to contact shopper support. And the only way to contact shopper support was through the app, which can be a little frustrating, especially if your connection is bad in whatever store you're in and they don't offer Wi-Fi for you. It's very easy to get frustrated when your card is declined and there's like 30 people in line behind you. It kind of leaves you at the wayside, and you have to like put all your stuff aside and kind of just figure it out yourself. That was probably the biggest issue. I was able to communicate that with my manager, and I never really saw a solution. I mean, I would even go so far as to, whenever I'd get the 12 case order or whatever of waters, I would proactively reach out to shopper support beforehand, before I even made it to the checkout line, and the issue still wouldn't be solved. So I would do this maybe like 6-7 times a day, where I would be getting a large order of water, and then I'd have to go into line and get declined. Didn't really matter if I contacted support beforehand. It kind of just always had to be after my card was declined. And so, yeah, it was pretty frustrating, especially in terms of a shopper, and like not only me, but among the people, my coworkers that I had been there with, who had been there longer than I had. They were just kind of like, yeah, this is what it is. People accepted it for what it was. Aside from that kind of leads into my next issue, was how shopper support is only found through the app. So it's like you can't call someone, you can't physically call someone. It's all done through a chat, which is pretty frustrating, because it's like one issue that I had experienced that kind of goes in line perfectly with this is that I would be on my phone, and my phone was being kind of buggy and unresponsive, wouldn't be able to accept orders, even though I had the latest iOS update and the latest shopper app. I'd go into my app, sometimes it wouldn't allow me to accept orders, and it was frustrating because I tried to contact support. The first time it actually happened to me, I talked to my manager. I was like, hey, is there anybody that I can talk to help me out with this situation? Because she didn't really know what to do. She was kind of just like, oh, have you tried refreshing the app? Like, yeah. Her solutions were kind of just ones that you would already think to do. Restart your phone, restart the app, turn it off and on. None of that really worked. So when I brought this to her attention, I was like, hey, is there somebody from support I could talk to that could make me, at least help me figure out the situation? And there wasn't. She was like, oh yeah, you have to just do it through the app. And that's already like such a frustrating, it's a pain point, it's a pain point, because it's like, if my app is already not being responsive, then why, like, how am I expecting it to be responsive when I need support? If I can't accept an order, why is it going to work when I contact support randomly? So that was definitely a big frustration point. I think we'll get into solutions later, but yeah, it was just a bummer. Aside from that, the next thing I would probably say is the next issue that I really ran into was probably how the app automatically kicks you out if you don't accept the order in time. I believe the acceptance window is about 4 minutes, and it's kind of funny because the only reason I know it's 4 minutes is because I would just ask other people in my coworkers who had been there longer. They're like, oh, they kind of just guesstimated. No one really knew how long it took for you to accept an order, or how much allotted time you were given to accept an order. And so basically, sometimes I'd be in a place in the store that didn't have good connection, and it wouldn't let me accept orders. I'd move to different sections of the store, press it over and over. I'd restart the phone, turn it off and on, and I wasn't allowed to accept the order. And then I was automatically kicked out of the app, and my shift was over. You can imagine how frustrating this is, because if you're supposed to be there from 10 to 2, and you're shopping, and I don't know, you somehow can't accept the order, kind of like how I did, and your shift ends at like 11 o'clock. And so, yeah, I think it's really frustrating how a user gets automatically kicked out of their shift just because an order wasn't accepted, and there's not really any leniency towards the shoppers. Another issue that I thought was kind of funny was how the Android app actually has different features than the iOS app. This could be relative to just my one coworker that I worked with who had an Android, but she was actually able to see what was in the order before it was accepted. And I thought that was pretty helpful, especially in terms of, their business goals are to make sure that their shoppers are fast and reliable. I think if you're able to at least see a couple items beforehand before you accept the order, it'll give the shopper a better example of, or a better idea of like where to go and which sections are most important depending on your order. And I felt like it was really weird that the Android app had these features, but the iOS one didn't. And it kind of gives like an unfair advantage to Android users in some extent. And I don't know, I thought it was really weird. The next issue was how the app automatically gives you more than one order, I would say probably before you're ready. I understand that their business goals are to make sure that their shoppers can get as many things as they can, especially if sometimes you get small orders, sometimes you get big orders, and if you put them together, one person could handle it both. Understandable. But I don't think there's like a grace period for new users, because when I had probably been like 2 or 3 days in, and I got this order I got 2 separate orders that I had to complete all at once all together. And I felt like in the beginning it was pretty overwhelming. I think that's something you definitely don't want to do to new users. You want to make sure that your new users move at a pace that is comfortable for them, and allow them to get comfortable before you give them more orders to fulfill. And I totally understand that, like, one user just can't have one order only and do that for 8 hours every single day. But I do think the wisest approach is to at least allow like a grace period for new shoppers to say like, oh hey, your first 10 orders are going to be a single order, but after that you will have to accept orders that are 1 to 2 different shoppers. And so that way users have a better experience in terms of allowing them to ramp up and get ready and get comfortable before they are just instantly kind of thrown to the flames. And I thought that was a pretty simple oversight that I was pretty frustrated about. While I was working at Instacart, I took screenshots of all the pages that I was using, so that way I could refer back to them while I was working on this redesign. And let's get into it. I'm really excited to show you guys what I've been working on. So this screen right here on the left is their current design, and everything to the right is what I have designed and my personal proposals to, to move forward with the app and make it something a little bit better. So what I did here is this this green circle right here actually is your countdown timer. So it'll eventually descend all the way around into just all white, and when it's white, that's how you know you actually haven't accepted your order in time. And it's kind of like how I mentioned earlier. There's not really any indicator of how long your timer is. So my design proposal is that we could remove the Costco logo, and you could actually include a timer in the center. That way you have two sources of a visual indication of how much time you have. I think the green circle is a great idea, but you could even improve upon that by adding a timer, so that way there's two different ways for people to understand how much time they have to accept an order. The next thing that you can see here, based on the individuals ordering, the two orders you have waiting. So you have Sarah P, Ruth D. Their current design will add a star when there's a new customer, and you can see 4 items, 8 units, and Ruth D is on her 7th order. You can see 1 item and 3 units. What I decided to do was just remove how many orders they've placed and whether it's a new customer or not. Mostly because as a shopper, there's no incentive for you to treat a new shopper or a new customer any differently than a returning customer. So especially for a shopper, it's like shoppers don't receive tips. So it kind of doesn't make sense for a shopper to really care or worry about if there's a new customer or someone who's placed their 100th order. They don't really have any incentive to do anything differently. The next design proposal that I have is, you can see here we have Sarah and Ruth, 1 item, 3 units. So kind of like how I mentioned earlier on the Android app, it had some features that weren't accessible for iOS. So what if you were just able to, before you even accept the order, just click on the individual's order and actually see what they have? So it gives you a little bit of an example of where to start looking and what direction you need to go, especially since timing is so important for shoppers. So you'd be able to click on Ruth's item. You could see she has 1 item, 3 units. You'd be able to see in her order, okay, she's got 3 orders of this particular coffee. And you'd be able to go back and then review Sarah's, and that way you have a better gauge of where particular items are going to be. So the next thing I wanted to point out that I made different in my design versus theirs is you have a take a break button right here above where your Costco timer is. And whenever this is basically, if you get, I think you get 2 breaks every 2 hours, something like that. And if you see an order coming in and you want to take your 10-minute break, you just press this button. However, I noticed that even after you came back from your break, this button was still there. There wasn't 2 different states differentiating between how many breaks you had available and if you'd actually taken it or not. The button kind of just always existed there. So the simple approach I made was, what if you could just have a visual indicator of a numerical indicator showing you how many breaks you had. So when you have 1, you'd be able to see, oh, cool, I have 1 break available. When you come back from that break, you would see here 0 breaks available. And that way, it's one of those things that actually kind of needs 2 states. There needs to be an active and inactive. And I thought it was really interesting how they didn't include that in their design. Moving forward, so this next screen actually falls in line with another UX flaw that I mentioned earlier, was how when you are kicked out of the app for not accepting an order fast enough, you are automatically booted off your shift. And this is the screen that you see right here. It'll ask you how your shopping experience was. You'd be able to rate it and leave feedback. But I noticed that there was only 1 single exit state for even when your shift, like if you completed your shift, let's say your shift is 10 to 2, and 2 o'clock comes, this is the screen that you would see instead of an order screen. And it's kind of interesting how when you get kicked off the app, you see the exact same screen, and there's no differentiation between, it's like, is my shift over? Did I get kicked out? You wouldn't really know. And so my proposal was that, what if there was just 2 different screens? So this particular screen right here would be if you were booted off by accident, by not being able to accept your order. what you would be able to do here is it would actually just let you know, oh hey, your order wasn't accepted in time. Would you like to return to your shift? You just press the button, pop back in, get back to work. So what I added here that makes my design a little bit different was how I added 2 return to shift uses. So I actually kind of caught this idea from my manager, who was a little bit disconnected with how the app actually worked. Every time I had gotten kicked out, she'd be like, "Oh, hey, there's a button that just allows you to go back." And you know, I searched many times for this particular button that allowed me to go back into my shift, and it really just didn't exist. And I think it really came down to that she was just disconnected from the current build of the app. I think maybe it was a feature they had before that they just removed on the modern version for whatever reason. But I think there should be some level of leniency with your shoppers. So in order to account for that, what if you just gave shoppers like two tries to go back into their shift? Yeah, obviously you don't want someone who's gonna abuse the accept order feature and kind of just be a little bit lazy and not choose to accept orders as fast as you would prefer. So this is a good way of meeting them in the middle and giving people an opportunity to just jump back in the shift instead of automatically kicking them out and greeting them with the same screen for either exit. So the theory here is that you'd be able to click this return to shift button and you'd be able to go back in. After 3 times, then maybe the customer support team or the shopper support team would know that, hey, maybe there's an issue with this shopper. Maybe something's going on with their app. Maybe we can reach out to them. And so there it is. Those are my design proposals. As you saw, it's all relatively simple stuff. I didn't do anything crazy. I stayed within their brand identity and their style guide and just added some very subtle tweaks and subtle features that I think can really improve the shopper experience. This is all to say the app isn't bad. It's just good design can always be improved upon. Nothing is ever complete, especially apps. There's always room to grow. And I hope that my experience as a shopper will hopefully educate somebody at Instacart and be able to allow them to improve as a company and, further expand their app. And, if somebody from Instacart sees this, please reach out to me. I would love to explain more about my process and how I can help you guys, especially through my experience and since I fit your core demographic. That being said, thank you everyone for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a nice day. Take care, everyone, and thank you.